Attention paddock. Could Chris Pritchard and Steve Plater report to race control, please? Thank you. Control out.
Oh, Steve, that sounds ominous. It's not the first time you've been summoned to race control, I'm sure, is it?
No, but I've been a good boy this time, honestly.
Yeah, I believe you.
Hey, listen, this is the main man of the paddock, the one that everybody has to listen to. It's going to be interesting.
And this is the main TT podcast you're listening to with me, Chris Pritchard, and of course, Steve Plater. And this one is going to be very interesting as we meet Clerk of the course, Gary Thompson. Gary Thompson, welcome to the TT podcast. Avid listener, I've heard.
Yeah, I've listened to all the podcasts. Well, most of them anyway.
All right then.
Yeah.
Let's call you bluff on this one. Who was your favourite podcast so far?
Oof. I know. They're all good actually. I did. I did enjoy the one from Hickey. Hickey was pretty good one actually. To be honest.
It's belittling me straight away, isn't he?
Why?
Has mine not been on yet?
No.
That's all right.
Obviously, when it does come out, Steve's will be the best
Absolutely,
podcast.
Lincolnshire lad.
Yeah. Right. So we start every podcast with the same question to the riders. It's all about that tap on that shoulder. For someone who's sat up in the control tower, it must be a completely different experience. So, number one riders rolling out for the senior TT. We're at the end of the week. Are you just as nervous setting them guys off there as you are at the start of the week? How does it feel?
It feels like that right from the very first practice session, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. It's I've said this on a few occasions too. Obviously, I work on the TT all year, putting together the risk assessment, the event safety management plan, the schedules, the race schedules, everything. And the nearer we get to the race, on the morning of the first practice session up in race control, obviously you're aware of everybody tuning in, listening in, watching everything. You just want it all to go right. And
Have you got a day job as well?
Absolutely, yeah. That's just in my spare time. But yeah, when and for me, it's when we call the bikes up onto the start line. Obviously, there's a lot of activity going upstairs then because we've got to get marshals in place. Obviously, beginning of the event, there's always a bit of an issue with getting marshals around the course and that because of the sheer number of the marshals. I mean, they do a fantastic job, but to get all the marshals in place is a bit of a feat. Once the roads are closed, we never know quite sure how many we're going to have. Until the roads are closed. To be honest, we've got a fair idea, but there's always one or two shortages. So, but when we're ready to go, and we hand over to the chief timekeeper, say right, it's all yours. Let's set the bikes off. As soon as that first tap goes, it's God knows how these guys feel because from my point, my stomach's churning as well. Yeah, and that's just on first practice. But the big one is the senior race. I mean, that is. Every race is special, but the senior race is the one. And I wouldn't say I have a sleepless night, but I don't get much sleep, to be honest.
I mean, we spoke at the TT, and it sounds like you don't get no sleep much of the time anyway. You're up pretty early and constantly busy.
It's a long day. Every day starts. I'm up at 6 because I'm in contact with the Ronaldsway Weather Centre, particularly on the race days.
So is that your first thought when you wake up? What's the weather going to be like?
Yeah, it is absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What's the weather going to be like in practice week? Although obviously we don't worry too much of the weather until later on in the day, or from midday onwards, really, depending on what the conditions are. But I'm always up dead early because I have a meeting, an operational group meeting at 7:15. Then as soon as that's finished, either myself or the deputy, Lizzie Kinvig, we'll go across to the police headquarters for a non-race meeting, and then we represent the racing organisation at the police meeting and interject where necessary and make them aware of any issues that may impact on the emergency service in the police force. But it's pretty full, and then the rest of the day is reacting to any issues, and there will always be. Obviously 37 3/4 miles, there'll always be issues around the course. We'll have people, just general inquiries, riders coming in asking questions, just a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Lunchtime, you start. Well, I wouldn't say lunchtime. You start thinking about. I'm thinking about it all the time, but then I start ringing the weathermen if conditions are looking iffy. I'm ringing up the weathermen to find out what the score is for the evening, because then I've got to start thinking about riders bringing bikes up for technical inspection. But the big one is the closure of the mountain section of the TT course, the one-way system.
Yeah.
Just to get that closed to get that taken away is a major feat, really. We've got DOI vehicles, coning vehicles, everything. There's a big process which has to start about 2.5 hours before the racing starts. So it's a big old beast.
That's unbelievable. With this podcast, I don't really know where to start, but Steve looks like he wants, because I don't know whether to go back in Gary's history and find out all about this man or what his job is at the TT. So I'm going to hand over to Steve, because Steve looks like he's going to ask him something.
No, it's more the case of just
go.
What you're explaining, because obviously, I mean, people are well aware you're the main man and the guy behind the clerk of the course and one of the major or main people that make the decisions up in the control tower, but it's actually a big team of people up there.
Yeah, it is. There's myself.
Just for the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I head up the race control. I head up the race organisation. But in race control, we've got 18 people, 19 people around race control. So we've got for control and management purposes, the TT course is split into 12 sectors. So there's myself, two deputy clerks of the course. Next to me is the elite dispatch, a guy on what we call the elite dispatch. So when the marshal presses his orange button on his Tetra radio to inform us of an incident, that message comes into the elite dispatch. The marshal's then got 30 seconds airtime on his radio to let us know. And primarily, the main questions are: do you need a race stop? Is it safe to continue? Do you need a race stop? And do you need air med? And once we've established that, once we've got that, I then, if it said yes, we need a race stop, then it's automatically red flags. We deploy the red flags. But if not, if it's safe for the session to continue under yellow flags, obviously we do so. But then we've got to get the air med there if required, and just manage the incident, bearing in mind that racing is still continuing. So there's that. And when I say the course is split into 12 sectors, we have 3 controllers. So going back to that incident is then passed on to one of the controllers. So we have one controller who manages sectors 1 to 4, one controller sectors 5 to 8, and one sector, the last controller sectors 9 to 12. So in terms of the course, controller 1 is start line through to Cronkyfoddy Crossroads. Then controller 2 is Cronkyfoddy Crossroads through to Ramsey Hairpin. Then controller 3 is Ramsey Hairpin, across the mountain, back to the start. And then we have laid up there doing retirement. So, if anybody stops on the course, they let them out. The marshals let us know who it is, so we can let the retirements office know downstairs. So obviously pit crews and family and that can be made to known. We have an event logist. We have a guy who specifically controls the movements of the travelling marshals and the course cars. We've got 8 travelling marshals. Obviously, we'll have to deploy course cars. And then, of course, we're also supported by all the emergency services. So we've got police, ambulance, and fire as well. So, and of course, the chief medical officer's up there as well. So.
See, I thought you had a tough job, but obviously you got 18 flipping people doing all the work.
Oh, mate,
it's too easy.
I sit back and take it easy. So, put the red flag out. No problem.
So obviously that's an overview of your job up in the tower at the TT. So let's go back to the start. First of all, why? Why did you get involved with the TT in the first place?
Oh, God, that's well, what it was. I did 25 years in the army, so I left the army in 2002, and the reason I left the army was because I was at a crossroads in my life I was offered a commission in the army, so I was WWII, warrant officer class 1 in the army, and Is that
good, Gary? Sorry.
That's as high as you can get in the soldier ranks.
Right.
Before you.
All the army people and military listening to this going, yes, that is, and I'm like, No idea. It's good.
Yeah.
Right, so-
Well, say it's warrant officer class 1. It's highest rank you can get as a soldier before you
Yeah, pretty good then.
before you either apply or accept a late entry commission.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at that crossroads where I could have either applied and become an officer, late entry officer, or carried on as a late entry. Carried on as a soldier in my role as WWII, or left the army and started a second career. And what it was I was in Sierra Leone, and I was part of the international military training team in Sierra Leone just after the Troubles. And my boss out there was a guy called Neil Hellings, Major Neil Hellings. And unbeknown to me, he left Sierra Leone a year before me and started work at the ACU as the chief exec. And he just sent me an email, said, look, he said, I know you're into your bikes, I know you love your bikes, but there is a job coming up at the ACU if you're interested. I didn't know he'd gone on to that role. He said, these are the details to send your CV to in your job application. So I did, because I was on the verge of leaving Sierra Leone to go to 26 Engineer Regiment in Maidstone. And so I won't say I was playing one off against the other, but I was edging my bets. I was thinking, right, well, if the job at the ACU doesn't come off, then I can stay with the army and vice versa. So I went for the job at the ACU. I think there was 26 of us who went for the job, and then it was shortlisted to 2, me and this lady. And then obviously I got selected for the role of General Secretary. And so left the army, literally left the army on the Friday the 15th of November 2002, and started work at the ACO 3 days later. So
Right.
a bit of a sharp turnaround. And then so it's going back to the TT. Then 4 months later, so I was in the role of General Secretary, and then 4 months later, the race secretary for the TT then was a lady called Margaret Greenfield, who decided to resign from the ACO. So Neil Hellings came out to me. He said, look, I know you love your TT and everything. He says, do you want to go be the race secretary? Well, absolutely. So, and that was it really. So I came across in 2003 as the race secretary, obviously with our finance director at the time, Brian Bonney. So I came across with him, and I'd already been before as a spectator, and I loved the TT. My dad loved the TT. The whole family loved the TT really. So knew all about it, but not a clue from the officiating side of it. And that was it really. Then we had the Manx Club took the TT on from 2004 through to 2007. AC Events Limited got it back in 2008, and by that time I started a clerk of the course role, if you like, or trained to be a clerk of the course with New Era under Jim Parker. And then I was the deputy clerk of the course for 2 or 3 years, and then took over the role in 2012.
So, Gary Thompson, MBE BEM, what the flipping heck's all that about then?
Give them to anyone.
Absolutely, yeah, jamboree packet. No, in 1986, I was in a headquarters Northern Army Group. It was a NATO headquarters, and I was part of a planning team for exercise. It was Exercise Reforger, Return of Forces to Germany, and part of that series, or part of that exercise was the actual deployment exercise called Exercise Certain Strike. But our team, we was responsible for moving 3 US Corps from Fort Hood in Texas, bringing them across, staging them through Belgium and Holland into Germany, putting them through this exercise, and then staging them all the way back. And there was 102,000 troops on the ground at the time with all the equipment and everything. It was the biggest land operation, albeit in exercise form, since the Second World War. My top boss, Colonel McEwen, got the CBE. Major Domerson, who was the planning officer, he got the MBE, and I got the BEM. So that was the BEM, and then in 1996 or 1997, I got the MBE for operational services for the year before, whilst I was in Bosnia. So.
Bosnia. So you must have been on a few tours and seen a few things.
Yeah, I joined the army in 1979 as a boy soldier at 16 years of age. I was in the Falklands. I was in the Falklands conflict in 82. The first Gulf War in 1991. 2 tours of Bosnia, Sierra Leone, and I'd been warned off for Gulf 2, but then that's when I left the army to work at the ACU.
When you mean warned off, when you say warned off, you mean they said don't bother with it?
Well, what it was, 2/6 Engineer Regiment had been earmarked for operations for Gulf 2.
Right.
And because I was only there's only 4 or 5 of us who was in 2/6 Engineer Regiment at the time, who had served in Gulf 1, I was going to be part of the training staff for 2/6 Engineers for the second operation. But they, when I explained that I had the chance of this second career in the ACU, they agreed to let me go, and that's when I left.
So what? I mean, you never know what you can and can't talk about when it comes to like military and the army. But which the moment you say Sierra Leone, that was the Black Hawk Down film was based on that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that place looked terrifying. Well, do you rank them in terms of terrifying? Or are they all just absolutely terrifying because you're there to do a job?
I mean, I wasn't so much on the front line. I mean, I was in the Falklands, the Gulf, and in Bosnia. I worked in 3 headquarters, so I wasn't like a frontline soldier.
Yeah.
But having said that, when you're out there, you do get pretty near to, and everybody's in range of missiles and bombs and God knows what else. So you're always on your guard, and I think for me I think it was probably initially the Gulf, because there was obviously we used to get all the intelligence reports and everything, and there was always the threat of a chemical and biological attack and all this. I mean, before the Gulf started, or the lead up to the Gulf, we had that many injections for. I think one of the injections I had was one of the biological agents, or one of the biological weapons he was going to use was injected actually with the contaminant, but then injected in the other arm with flu, so the flu could actually fight the agent.
Really?
So that gives us the immunisation, or helped give us the immunisation. Yeah.
That's terrifying.
But no, probably the Gulf, because there was always this, up until when obviously the RAF softened the blow, because there was the airstrike on the Iraqi army for about 6 weeks before the land forces went in. The land war only lasted 4 days, because I think they just they've been absolutely bombed and bullets to hell. So by the time we went through, the coalition forces went through, there was throwing down the weapons and just surrendering right, left and centre. And the biggest thing was literally then moving them back down the line, back to the POW camp, the prisoner of war camp.
Do you miss it, military?
So, some of it do, yeah, some of it I do. I had 25 years in the army, and
A long time.
Yeah, met some good mates, and I just like that it was. I'm a bit OCD. I am a bit,
I'm pleased you brought it up.
I am a bit OCD, and I think because of my.
Let me stop you there, right? So he's left his house before, gone off, driven off, or ridden. I'm not sure. I can't remember which. Realised he hasn't hung the tea towel up correctly in the kitchen. Turned around, gone home, and done it.
That is correct, actually. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
But with the
moving
military,
swiftly on.
Yeah, with the military experience and a little bit of OCD-ness, I mean that's perfect for the role of clerk of the course, right? They need someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the if you like I like things to be regimented, things that follow in a certain order. So, when I put together the qualifying schedule, the minute by minute, as we call it. It is quite. I do find it quite logical to. You think, right, what comes next? And if he's doing that, she's doing that, he's doing that, and it just kind of tends to follow on.
Was that prior to? Did you have that kind of mindset prior to the army though, or was it the army that instilled
No,
it
we
in you?
see when I was in Bosnia, part of my for the 2 years prior to Bosnia, when I first went to one UK Army division in Germany, I was the staff assistant of the headquarters, one UK Army div, and unfortunately, one of our lieutenant colonels died of a heart attack, and his role was to organise all the ministerial, organise VIP visits to our sector, to our divisional area. So I did that back in base in Germany, and it was not to name names, but it was mostly royalty and ministerial, and I carried out that function when we went operational in Bosnia. Was in Banja Luka for 7 months in Banja Luka. We was the multinational division Southwest. So my role in Bosnia was to basically organise these VIP visits, and it was all it literally was all mostly royalty and ministerial, and there was the Princess Royal, there was the Duke of Kent, there was the Prime Minister, the Secretary of State for Defence, and all these people, and to put together a programme like that, bearing in mind the security aspect that had to come into it, the press and everything else, that was. It was like it was putting together a minute by minute, a visit program, a visit schedule.
So this is a piece of cake compared to that. Easy.
It has its moments, but I mean it's a logical process, really. Yeah. And it wasn't as though I didn't come into this event with a blank sheet of paper. I mean, obviously the clerk of the course before me and the clerk of the course before that, there was something to follow on from. Mm-hmm. Unlike the Isle of Wight road races, if the Isle of Wight road races goes ahead, I've obviously worked very closely with Steve on the Isle of Wight road races, and that has been putting together a schedule literally from a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah. Wow. So you have got some background in motorcycling, like you just said. You're a massive fan of the TT. So where did all that come from?
Well, before that, it was a speedway. I first got
there you
taken
go, Steve.
Absolutely. I was sort of 6 year old, I think, 7 year old when my dad first took me to Boston Barracudas. So I was born and brought up in Lincolnshire.
Oh, so it wasn't even a good speedway team that you went to see. It's not like you went to see the Tigers.
Go and sit in the corner.
Which Tigers? Sheffield or Leicester?
Tigers. No, Sheffield Tigers.
Sheffield.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
No.
Anyway,
Good track, Sheffield. Fast.
WWII, wasn't it?
I remember of us.
Yeah.
They rode out of Sheffield.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress.
No. So that was my first. First ever time I went to Sheffield. Boston.
Nobody goes to Sheffield.
It was Boston versus Birmingham Brummers, and
is that what they were called, the Brummies?
yeah, Birmingham Brummers. Yes, ironically. Yeah. And their number one rider was a guy called Arthur Browning. So there's this big 6 foot giant in the pits with a bloody great big mop of ginger hair, and my hero then was Carl Glover. He was my big hero, and Arthur Browning beat Carl Glover, he beat Arthur Price, and that was obviously the Boston team at the time. And I just absolutely fell in love with the sport that night, and literally from the age of 7 through to 6 until the day I joined the army, we never missed a meeting at Boston.
Really?
And very rarely missed a meeting at King's Lynn as well. King's Lynn Stars, which is only 30 mile down the road. Absolutely loved it, and that was when I fell in love with motorbikes. And
it's mad, isn't it? 'Cause I'd have been there at the same time.
Would you?
Yeah,
I'd have been
absolutely.
there at the same time, not watching. I'm with riders,
Small world.
just cleaning wheels and
Yeah.
world.
And then of course, when I was 70s, obviously everybody who kids of our age, our heroes were Barry Sheen, Mick Grant, and then we had a rider at Boston who was, for me probably, and although his career was relatively short, one of the greatest ever speedway riders ever was Michael Lee. Of course, he stopped riding mid-80s, was it?
Yeah,
I think.
world champion.
Yeah.
But what a talent, and obviously the great Peter Collins, PC world champion in '76. Yeah. But no, that Barry Sheen, Mick Grant, people like that, and then I joined and I I wouldn't say I lost touch, but obviously I couldn't get to watch as much as I wanted to. But obviously we'd been in the army, but you always keep in touch and. Did a bit of off-roading here and there, but nothing serious.
Well, I guess that was going to be my next question. Normally, you get bitten by the bug, you're a fan of it, and then you want to have a go at it and try it out.
Yeah.
Become a speedway champion. Did you have any?
No, I was in the army.
Fair enough.
No, not
was that
at all.
because you knew the talent wasn't there, or you
No,
just
well,
had no interest?
Well, I certainly proved that the talent wasn't there, because when I'm not sure if you know this actually, but when I left the army, when I joined the ACU, very, very shortly after that, I was a sidecar passenger on the back of a grass track outfit.
Oh.
And I was 40 years of age then, and probably my movement as a 40-year-old wasn't probably what it should have been as a teenager. And so we was in this. I passengered Andy Cotter, God bless him. And he sadly died a couple of years ago with cancer. But and his son Mark, he's been multi-times grass track sidecar champion, 1000cc champion. But I passengered his dad, and we didn't do too well because
You move like an old man.
Yes, basically. Yeah. Well said, Chris. Thank you. I couldn't put it better myself, really. But my career come to a shuddering halt when we was in this national meeting, the John Underwood Trophy in Buckinghamshire, and we had a really bad start because we wheeled up and then we would try to catch up, and we hit this bump going into the third bend of the third lap. And Andy in the sidecar went one way, and I went pinging off in the other direction, and ended up in Stoke Mandeville Hospital for a few days.
Oh dear.
The whole left-hand side was all fractured and bent. And
That was your racing career. Started and stopped right there.
Well, I landed at because I was general secretary then, of course, at the ACU, and Jim Parker was the chairman. And anybody in road racing will know the name Jim Parker, and he sadly died in 2013. But he was the chairman of the ACU, and I landed at his feet, and he come to see me in hospital a couple of days later, and basically said, young Gary, he said, I think your racing days have come to an end. But I had a road bike, and so I've done the national rally and all that sort of thing. But
you just said 1000cc. They were running 1000cc's in those grass track.
I still do. Yeah.
1000cc.
Yeah, we had a Yami X up.
Go off it.
Yeah, fabulous, brilliant. Yeah,
On grass.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not a chance.
Sideways everywhere.
Not a chance. No, not for me. So luckily for everybody else, you became clerk of the course. TT.
That's a matter of opinion. But
Done a good job so far, right, Steve? I don't know, Steve.
God, yeah. I mean, I went down the officiating route then, and I was appointed in 2011, and my first event was in 2012. And I must admit, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love that. I mean, some years are more difficult, and obviously we've had a difficult year this year. But overall, and sometimes you go and you think, "God, Struth, that was difficult," like I did this year, to be honest. But you sit back, you go back, you readjust. We have meetings, we have debriefings, lessons learned, all this sort of thing. But there's something about the TT. It probably sounds cliche about obviously we all know it's the most unique event in the world and all this sort of stuff, and that's been said many times. But being upstairs in race control when it's going well, or when it's going to plan, and everything's in place and everything's happening and the sun's shining and the crowds are out there is no finer place to be, or a finer event to be in charge of, to be honest.
I think that's the perfect way to end part one of this podcast, because I want to get into this this first ever clerk of the course in 2012 because it didn't quite go to plan. But we will get to that in part 2. So make sure you join us on part 2 to hear more from Gary Thompson.